Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 66. 666? We intention, as we've alluded to previously, we've intentionally held off on this character until issue 66 because we are doing Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes, as per the request of Ruby, our super fan, president level patron. She asked that we cover Ghost Riders in general or Robbie Reyes. So we've got the first issue that we'll get to is more Ghost Rider in general, but this episode is really focused on Robbie. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. One, we apologize for no episode last week. Doc and I just couldn't find the time to come together.
Patience. I mean, I'm not telling you to have patience. I'm saying I had patience. And by having patience, I didn't mean time. I mean patience. There's really no other way to say that.
Yeah. Clients.
No, because I'm a doctor. I don't say clients. And there is a push with insurance companies about, you know what? Let me stop that soapbox because we got work to do.
Exactly. So in any case, we apologize. So this episode is coming out basically around Christmas. So Merry Christmas. This is our present to you.
Yep. Merry Christmas. You're going to be in hellfire.
Yeah. Kind of we hoping we'd be on holiday break, but such as it is, we will just make do with what we've got. We will be taking a break. This is the last episode of the season, so to speak. We will be taking a few weeks off, and we will come back in January, rested and recharged with a lot of good stuff for 2020. So we'll touch on that a little bit at the end of the show. Reminder for our sticker giveaway. If you listen to us on basically Apple Podcasts or Podchaser and you leave us a review and email us a screenshot of that review with your address, we will send you a sticker. And to that end, I've got a review that I'm going to read now, left to us on Podchaser from Chad Brockbrader. Quote, such a great listen, stacking layers on the foundations of characters I thought I knew like the back of my hand. So
that's so nice.
That is a really awesome review. So thank you, Chad. We appreciate that. You send us your address and we'll send you out a sticker. And as always, you can find the rest of our shows basically wherever you find podcasts. Our website is capesonthecouch.live. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a Discord, which we are listening. We've got folks listening right now. And the last podcast and the last podcast that I want to shout out is 10-ish Pod. Nick and Brandon cover a different topic each week, covering the top 10-ish of that list in real time, because the way the show works, only one of them knows what the list is, or at least the entries on that list, while the other one is totally in the dark. It's very hilarious. It's mostly educational and definitely not safe for work. So 10ishpod.com, all one word. You can check them out and basically find them wherever you find podcasts. So let's just jump right then into the background. Robbie Reyes, created by Felipe Smith and Tradd Moore in all new Ghost Rider #1, March 2014. And Robbie is definitely one of the newest characters we've done. I know we did Nadia, but that wasn't a full-blown episode like this because that was more of an interview with Jeremy Whitley. So right. I believe this is the newest character that we've done a full regular episode on.
Cool. So it's in its infancy. That's good to know.
So, which also means that the background isn't really going to take that long because we're only covering 5 years worth of episodes. And I think I read a thing that Robbie, the character, has been in, I think, 77 issues total, or at least as like a main character with like a handful of additional mentions. But it's really not hard to be a Robbie Reyes completionist if you're a comic collector. So Robbie, he's a high school student. He's working as a mechanic while taking care of his disabled brother, Gabe. He borrows a car from his shop and uses it in a street race because his whole thing is he wants to make enough money to get him and Gabe out of East LA. They live in a very dangerous neighborhood in East LA. And he says, we have to get out of here. I need money. How can I do that? Street racing. all right, I'm just going to borrow this car that I've been working on. It's a Dodge Charger. It looks pretty souped up. I'm not a car guy. So he's not only unaware that the car contains pills created by Calvin Zabo, a.k.a. Mr. Hyde, but he's also unaware that the car is possessed by a demonic spirit. So he takes off, and then he's in the lead until he's cornered by what he thinks are police. They end up being mercenaries hired by Mr. Hyde to retrieve the pills. They shoot him dead in an alley, and he's revived by the spirit in the car. And he's ends up with a flaming version. It's not the skull, because if you're familiar with Ghost Rider, you've got Danny, Johnny, and it's the flaming skull.
It looks like a helmet, in my opinion.
Well, it is. It's basically a flaming version of the race helmet that he was wearing while he was racing in the car. So the spirit is Eli Morrow, and this guy is a real piece of work. Eli is a satanic serial killer who's later revealed to be Robbie's uncle. And it's also later revealed that Eli pushed Robbie's mother down the stairs, making him responsible for Gabe's disabilities. He's that kind of a guy. So, yeah, Eli, I think, killed 37 people while working as an assassin for the Russian mob. He was also a Satanist. And, yeah.
Okay. Because that's bad radio, what I'm doing right now. I just have this perplexed and even more perplexed look going on. Because to be honest, I haven't had a chance to read much of the run. So much of what Anthony is giving me, I knew some of the backstory in general, but not in this detail. So you're going to get a lot of my opinions, much more from the clinical perspective, not just from the comic book fan perspective on this episode.
So Robbie first uses the power to basically win races and earn money so he can help take care of Gabe. But Eli grows tired of his power being wasted, so he takes over Gabe in an attempt to kill this Russian mobster. So Robbie fights the spirit, kills the mobster, and this ends up bonding him with Eli's spirit. So he agrees to only kill people with evil souls because that is the only way to slake Eli's bloodlust. So he later joins the Avengers. And as a matter of fact, they just finished a story arc called The Challenge of the Ghost Riders, where Robbie is calling upon the Avengers and other Ghost Riders to help him exorcise Eli's spirit. I have not yet had a chance to read The Challenge of the Ghost Riders. I was able to read the Ghost Rider runs that Robbie was, the key focus on.
Yeah.
So that's mostly what I'm basing this on. So I don't know full disclosure. I don't know what's going on in the Avengers books. In Challenge of the Ghost Riders. Haven't had a chance to read it yet. I do know that Cosmic Ghost Rider is a part of that story, and I love Frank Castle, Cosmic Ghost Rider, that Donny Cates story.
You really do. You've mentioned that so many times.
I have the trade. It's friggin' fantastic.
Okay.
It's definitely quality. Also, side note, Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider is a large part of the best season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You can fight me on that.
I'm not going to get into that, but that was my introduction to him. I really didn't know much about the character before the show. So
yeah, he's a big part of season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is stellar. That's the best season of the show, in my opinion, between that and the Ada storyline. And then they come together at the end. It's beautiful. So delving into the issues. The first one that I want to talk about is a little broader in scope, and this is the idea of family. And so Ruby says that a recurring theme among the Ghost Riders is family and family issues. So you've got Robbie and his developmentally disabled brother Gabe. Danny Ketch and his mom had a lot of issues, and we heard that with Howard Mackey.
Right.
He spoke about that, and you can check out the New York Comic Con interview episodes. I don't remember if it's part 1 or part 2, but you can listen to them both if you haven't heard them. Johnny has certainly a host of issues there. So Ruby's notion is that giving all to the family becomes too much. And then that almost becomes its own demon that you have to deal with, even if it's in a positive way, that coping with your family can really put a drain on a person.
What a great way to start the holiday season.
Exactly.
So,
not that any of our listeners may or may not have family that are slightly difficult to deal with, or, any of the hosts of the show.
So let's just put this at 100%, because even the best of families that get along on most situations, you're always going to have disagreements. You're always going to have the topics that you don't touch. All of that stuff is a package deal. Family implies a level of obligation, and we don't always like to say it that way because, as you've already hinted at, it can become a burden. It's almost as if you have this biological contract with people that says, because of circumstances well beyond your control, people having sex, you are now going to spend certain amounts of energy and time and overall emotional investment in these people that may otherwise be strangers because you have nothing in common with them. I'm not even saying that as an insult. I'm saying that everyone has the opportunity to develop their own interests in life, and they may not match up. That can be true for close family, brothers, sisters. It could be for cousins. It could be for people that drift in and out, because we also know that location can make a big difference when it comes to breeding familiarity. Sometimes you become friends with someone because they're the person that's in the building or in the house, as opposed to a person that you may get along with very well, but because they're in a different country, and yes, I am kind of throwing myself in there, you don't get the opportunity to develop that same type of bond. And yet, when you see them again, it's almost as if you were just talking to them yesterday. So I'm going to put the positive light on that. But with this whole thing with Robbie and all the ghostwriters, actually, when you feel like the family itself is trapping you and anything you do outside of them, it doesn't just become an obligation, it becomes an insult. In other words, similar to someone that has, let's say, a certain level of success. And I know maybe the ghostwriters themselves wouldn't consider having those powers to be a success, especially if they died. But the point is, you now have something that other people don't. And it becomes this idea that you made it, that means we all made it. So now everybody is with you. And in circumstances like that, you end up perhaps being dragged down like crabs in a barrel. So I'm not trying to insult families that are going through difficult times or anything of the sort. I'm just saying that for a person to have unique development and the ability to better themselves as a human, they are going to have interactions besides the people that they're related to. We can expand this a little bit to say it doesn't have to be biological relationships. It can be the type of family that's in the same neighborhood. It can be your group of friends. It can be your co-working circle. Heaven forbid, let's just throw this out there. Heaven forbid somebody wins the lottery at your workplace. And there was a group of people that all put into the pool and one person felt left out, even though they've worked with them for years. Can you imagine the type of dissonance that's going to create before everybody that won leaves? Just the idea that, wait a minute, I thought we were in this together. You're going ahead and you're using something that was unexpected and you're going a completely different direction and you're leaving me in the lurch. How dare you? Meanwhile, the other person is saying, well, wait a minute. I was the one that actually took the chance, the lottery, of course, being random. But let's go back to what we said with abilities. I was the one that developed this skill, or I'm the one that put in the work to get all of this stuff done. And meanwhile, everyone else around me is complaining and they want to ride my coattails. That may be a bit of a problem. So all of these dynamics, unfortunately, don't just go away. You can't just turn it off because those people do know you. And unless you do everything to change your identity, address, hide, whatever, they're going to continue to be in your life. So if you don't find a way to create a balance with what's important internally versus what's important externally, you're going to end up with even more turmoil. And it doesn't go away. The number of times I've had patients say to me, yeah, I would be just fine if I didn't have so-and-so in my life. And when I ask, okay, what's the next step? How do you get them out of your life? They say, well, that's just it. I can't, because there's a certain level of reliance, be it emotional reliance, financial reliance, anything of the sort. Things become so enmeshed because they had the opportunity to be for years on end, that you can't just, quote unquote, cut ties and abandon everything. So if you have a sense of personal obligation, even if you think that the alternative is a better choice, you still don't go with it because your own sense of responsibility is greater than your sense of self-preservation. These are just a few random thoughts of how this can be applied. And I know every single person, I don't think I'm exaggerating here, every single person is navigating that right now during the holiday season. So I hope everyone's having a great time doing it, because for the most part, all those people, as much as I said, they may drive you crazy, but doggone it, you just love them.
Yeah, I know in my personal family circle, we've got folks that we love them. We just wish maybe they were just a little less them. I can take them at about 80% of them, but when they're being 100% them, it's just, all right, got to grit my teeth, got to deal with it. And as we said, I'm sure that many of our listeners are aware that the holidays are definitely one of those very stressful periods because you're with family, whether it's, an aunt or an uncle who doesn't understand the meaning of boundaries, or you've got a parent who's a narcissist and you're going back for family gatherings and everything is about them, or you have the racist grandparent who's, talking smack about minorities and whatever. I'm just throwing issues and examples out there, but I also don't think it's too far-fetched to say any one of these could be happening to our listeners, depending on when they're listening to, like this week, or very recently. So I do think it's an excellent question. And frankly, I think that could maybe be a topic in and of itself, talking about family and the toxic nature of certain families on heroes and how difficult it is for them to move beyond that. And then I think that would be a good way for us to be able to give some tips to our listeners as to how to address and deal with those people. I know that there are resources available. I know that there are organizations that can help you. I know there are subreddits. If you're a Redditor, I know Raised by Narcissists is a very popular one that is very big on helping folks cope with those kinds of family dynamics.
Yep. And even then, we're talking more of the generic run-of-the-mill types of situations. Obviously, if we're extending this, especially with a character like Robbie, who finds out that he has a family member that's done a lot of bad stuff in the world, heaven forbid a person has gone through any sense of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, all of it. If you've gone through that, then definitely seek out the proper resources, because no one deserves to be treated that way. And we also know that it's a situation where it's a lack of control, a lack of power. And in those circumstances, you have to be as discreet as possible. I was not focused on that for this particular situation, only because it extended to multiple characters. If we're specifically talking about Robbie, in that sense, a person that clearly knows how to destroy lives and now has this bond by circumstance with him and says, by the way, some of my genetic material flows through you, that can be painful, because there's almost a sense of, is this my destiny? In other words, if somebody in my family acts like this, and this is the person that I'm going to chronically be directly exposed to, how do I not end up like this? How do I not end up like that person? If all you know is an abusive parent or abusive adult in your life, and that's all you see modeled, and then on top of that, that person wants to be a role model or wants you involved in their life. They may not even be intentionally showing you the negative things that they've done, but that's all you see and that's all you know. What balance do you have to counteract that? You really don't have it. So there is a good chance that you're going to have a really chaotic adulthood. if you don't have some external force come in and start righting the ship. So Robbie got put in a really bad spot.
Agreed. And to that end, that's a perfect segue to the next issue that I want to discuss. You know, we're talking about family and negative relationships. Let's switch it a little bit. It's a positive relationship, but it has a negative impact. His relationship with Gabe prevents him from having a typical adolescence. You know, he's 16, 17 years old, and he is the sole caregiver for his developmentally disabled brother. There are no parents in the picture. He is solely responsible for helping to keep a roof over their head, to feed his brother, to make sure that his brother gets the proper medical care that he needs. And he also has to deal with being a 17-year-old boy. It wasn't that long ago. Well, maybe a little bit long ago, but we can still remember what it was like to be 17-year-old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to take care of a developmentally disabled child in a wheelchair and have a full-time job and go to school. Never mind the rest of the Ghost Rider stuff. That alone is incredibly difficult. And it foists this responsibility upon Robbie that I don't think he's entirely ready for. He certainly didn't ask for it. Now, having said all of that, I know you didn't get into a lot of the reading, but he, before the Ghost Rider stuff happens, he does an outstanding job. And there's certainly no question that he loves Gabe. And Gabe idolizes Robbie. So Robbie, I think, does a great job of being a brother up to the point that we come into the story. It's not, I would think, it's not entirely irrational for him to say, I need to get us out of here. How do I do that? And he looks to street racing. So, and we'll get into a little bit of that in the third issue. But I guess I'm sort of jumping around a little bit.
I get your point. Just to clarify that a little bit, there's the issue of all things to pick, why pick street racing? But there's also the why do you need to get out? And it's obvious why he felt they needed to get out. So,
well, I just want to primarily talk about just the idea that he's got all this stuff that he shouldn't have to deal with as a 17-year-old. You know, that he should, that we're not letting him be a teenager. He's not allowed to go through the adolescence. It's difficult, you know, between, like I said, having to work the full-time job and take care of his brother. There's nobody else aside from the woman who takes care of Gabe while he's at school.
Yeah. You know, basically the equivalent of what we would call like a home health aide. So Robbie, unfortunately, I'm going to tweak what you just said. When you pointed out he didn't get to live out his adolescence, he lived it whether he wanted to or not, because the actual brain development during adolescence still happened. The problem is we have come to appreciate over the past several decades that time is not just a time of you learn how to be an adult and you do adult things. We've learned that type of brain development happens into your 20s. So therefore, he may not be emotionally equipped to automatically deal with the added stressors that are going to continue to come on as he gets older, because he never got the chance that most adolescents, or the classic version of adolescence that we now know, to decompress at times or to experiment at times with other things with the opportunity to fail. So many things that we do as young children, teenagers, all of it are built so that we know if we don't do them that well, the consequences are minimal. Robbie doesn't have that. He has to be on point all the time, because if he doesn't, the consequences are dire, both for him and his brother. They could end up homeless. They could end up with his brother being medically compromised or his brother being emotionally compromised because he may have poor reactions to things himself. So he knows that there are certain things that he can't ever shut down. And nowadays we talk about self-care. Well, Robbie is doing the best self-care he can, but I don't think he has the opportunity to treat himself or do the things that people have learned that adolescents or whatever like to do as almost an insult. In addition to that, we have the classic trope of make sure that you, no other way to say this, make sure that you finish school, get the proper job, and do everything the right way, because if you don't do it that way, everything's going to fall apart. And unfortunately, many people don't even have that luxury. In other words, if you really put the screws to Robbie and you said, you know what, I could give you a job right now that makes sure you have a roof over your head, your brother's going to be fed, and you can just do this job 8 hours a day, and you don't have to earn a diploma. I'm pretty sure he would go for that. I may be wrong, but I think a lot of people would go for that, because you have all the things that are necessary to have an okay life with that. And if the people that are more dogmatic about it, and unfortunately, I'm going to say this, even though I love teachers, I love everybody doing what they're doing, but they have to focus on teaching. They can't automatically jump in on someone's personal life. So they may not have the opportunity to pull Robbie aside and be a mentor or anything like that. And Robbie may not even be seeking that. He's more important about where their next meal's coming from and what he has to do to make sure he gets home on time, to make sure that his brother is taken care of. All of those things. So I'm not blaming anyone. But when you have all of that added together in a mind that wasn't and still isn't really built to deal with that stuff in that way, unless you keep it incredibly basic, then you're going to ask for a person to start making some desperate changes in their life the second that there's any added stress. In other words, he has what is called a tension equilibrium. What does that mean? That means that he's got all of these plates spinning at once, and he keeps them spinning. They're going. You already gave the point. He really is doing all of this. The problem is so many of them are going at once that the second that either someone tries to add a plate or there's an added stressor to what's already spinning, the whole thing's going to fall apart. It's going to collapse. And it's not going to be his fault. But because he's used to the idea that he's got it, that he can handle all of it, he's going to take that as a personal affront, and he's going to feel either like a failure or that society has completely rejected him. Any one of those extremes can happen because the tension that heavy shouldn't have been there in the first place, like you said. So from that standpoint, this is a kid that, yes, showed incredible resilience and showed incredible work ethic, but at the same time is set up for being emotionally stunted.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the issues that leads to all the problems that he has once he bonds with Eli's spirit, because now he's a 17-year-old kid who doesn't know how to deal with all of this. And now he's on top of all of that. Now he's got these powers, and his demonic uncle saying, I need you to kill this person. I need you to kill that person. Kill, kill, kill. Why aren't you killing? Yep. So that's going to mess up anybody, much less a kid.
Right. And who was his moral compass? Where would that have come from? Is that really established? Because the way that usually these types of characters are written, it's that they're generally good and they're doing the right thing. In this case, doing the right thing for his brother. So that's a positive. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that he developed this hierarchy of ethical principles that would allow him to navigate a very complex web of doing the right thing versus the wrong thing when someone is constantly in your ear. So I don't know how that would really go. I don't think in the long run it would go that well, but that's just me.
Yeah. So moving on to the third issue now, Robbie's a bit of a thrill seeker, and as responsible as he is for Gabe and as responsible as he is with school, and we do see that Robbie is a great student. Where he finds the time to study, I don't know, especially once he's the writer.
Oh, he's got to be sleep deprived.
He's incredibly sleep deprived, and yet he manages to do the majority of his work, at least in this English class where he's dealing with your stereotypical substitute teacher who's like the, hi guys, somebody's, okay, let's all work together and blah, 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 blah. And, nobody in the class takes him seriously. Robbie still manages to get his work done. So in all those other respects, I think he's got it together, but he is a thrill seeker. He's a bit of an adrenaline junkie. And as we've seen before with some other characters that we've discussed, that tends to lead to less than ideal decisions. And that's how he ends up in the car in the first place. And so I think to some extent that compounds his problems. And then once he and the writer come together, now instead of saying, oh, maybe I should back off because I have to be responsible, it becomes, all right, I'm going to go out, use these powers, and I'm going to win all these races. And that's how, he ends up with a fat knot at one point, and he's just like peeling off bills to pay the social worker and this and that. He's like, Gabe needs medicine. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me make it rain up in here. Like,
I got you.
But that is its own set of issues. And so the thrill seeking leads to rash decisions.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
he doesn't fully pay the consequences for it, or he does technically initially. He pays with his life. He pays with his life.
Right.
But then he manages to stave off any major consequence for a while anyway. But I'll let you unpack that.
Well, as anybody that's listened to enough episodes knows, even if it's a similar topic to previous characters, I always try and put a different spin on it so you don't feel like you're hearing the exact same thing the exact same way. So with Robbie, I'm going to go somewhere that I thought we might get into anyway, and I might be shoehorning this, so bear with me. Some of the thrill seeking is a little bit of the culture. And what I mean by that is he's in the middle of East LA. He's in a clearly a what do you call it? Auto aficionado kind of situation. He's, like with auto body shops, with the street racing, with all of that stuff. That's not something that you just randomly say, oh, that looks nice. Let me try it once. That's something that usually gets ingratiated, kind of like any other hobby. And in his case, as with most adolescents, you are going to have some experimentation and some risk taking. But this seems to be something that many people in that circumstance would be exposed to. And if that's the case, then it makes it sound much more natural. You would have to fill me in on this, Anthony. In terms of the thrill seeking, is it just the racing or is it other areas where he's really thrill seeking? In other words, does he do base jumping? Does he do skydiving? Does he swim with sharks? I'm making stuff up, but I'm just saying, like, in general.
No, it's definitely limited to the street racing.
Okay.
But then I feel like it sort of takes on a new angle when he becomes the rider.
Well, right. I mean, to make it something, I just realized I don't even have to go beyond the street racing or the riding. I tend to shy away from specific topics that I admit I don't know much about. So I do not know much about racing, so I can't pretend. But what I'm going to say is, in general, when you're good at something or you find a way to be good at something or you're able to associate someone else who's close to you who's good at something, you stick with it. And so from that standpoint, once he starts getting success and a few of the things that may have played into that, teenager that may not get much recognition otherwise because there aren't any parents around. So now he gets that emotional support. He gets the financial support when he starts running races. So he's able to be the ultimate provider, which in all honesty, in what is still predominantly, not saying this is a good thing, just the way it is, a male-driven culture. And in general, please don't send us hate mail. In general, it tends to be males that are more geared towards this sort of thing, by percentage. Then he's going to find his clique. He's going to find his group that accepts him and allows him to thrive in a way that allows him to get some fulfillment other than the basic needs that he's been struggling for so long to make sure that everything was A-okay at home. Similar to what we were talking about before, he was spinning all of these plates. Well, imagine if something came along and allowed that burden to just disappear. Everything is taken care of. It's all good. We know that really that's not the truth, but the perception that Robbie gets at that point makes it the reality. So from that standpoint, it doesn't matter what the odds are that you're going to get hurt or someone else is going to get hurt. It doesn't matter that statistically, you're probably not going to be able to do this for long. Because the instant that you get success at that age, you think it's going to last forever. It's just the way we're wired. We are not wired for the long term. We're wired for the short term. And short-term success, short-term immediate, overwhelming success is the one thing that will make you short-sighted almost indefinitely until something else comes along to snap you out of it. So ends up with powers that he didn't expect. Yes, the death was a horrible thing, but still keeps going. Able to provide support, able to get adulation and the type of affection that he would never get otherwise in his life. Not have to worry about whether or not he's checking off other boxes in terms of his hierarchy of needs. Not having to live up to any other person's expectations, creating his own. And being able to get your rocks off because it's a thrill. Who wouldn't sign up for that? So I know I'm turning it on his head. I'm not saying that automatically it's a good thing. I'm saying that in human nature, it is what we would go to almost, I'd say 9 times out of 10. So I feel like that's a setup. That's a setup for someone like Robbie easily to do that time and time again. So why do we not do that? Why aren't you and I right now trying to, drag race up and down your street? Because we don't have the culture around us that would promote that.
I live in a very, very small, almost closed off little enclave here. So I mean, drag racing around, there's not even a straightaway here that I could
well,
do.
I'm just saying, so we don't have
it's like 6 houses long.
We don't have the environment for it. We don't have the culture for it in terms of we don't have the people that even know anything about it. Or maybe you do. I know I really don't. We don't have the necessity to look outside of what we already have in our lives. So a lot of this may seem incredibly foreign to us. But even if that's the case, that doesn't mean that we may not at some point in our lives be put in a situation where that impulse of something so enticing that we've never experienced, but now get the opportunity to, and provides such overwhelming rewards that we might go for it. That may happen. That's actually one of the opportunities for what we would call an existential crisis, or what used to be called, midlife crisis. The idea that things have become so mundane that you're looking for anything outside of what you typically do in your routine because you haven't really found anything else to create a personal identity. You've just been so melded in with your circumstances that you don't really know how to deal with it. You're happy, but not happy. So thankfully, Robbie is still young. He doesn't have that. It's more like, I got my way out. I'm getting out. And it's something I like. So let's just roll.
Literally.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I like the analysis and the way that you put it, that basically if you have the short-term success and it's something that you enjoy doing, you've got blinders on.
Yeah.
You're not going to see anything else.
Yep.
And I think that's very fair. And we see it all the time with child actors, child musicians, anybody who achieves fame, success, whatever at a young age, they're not ready for it. And that's why you see so many of them burn out. You see where are they now type stories. I think Robbie very much could have been or could be one of those type stories if he doesn't have some sort of intervention and a positive role model to help say, listen, what you've got is good, but it's not going to last unless you make some changes. And I don't know who a really positive role model would be for Robbie. He does end up joining the Avengers. So that may be that sort of circumstance and situation that helps him. But again, because he's such a young character, both literally and figuratively, there's still a lot of time for him to grow and develop. So we're going to take a short break. We'll plug a couple of our friends shows. And when we come back, we'll get into treatment. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What is the perfect package? Well, it could be anything. Join Chad and Dave as they dive into the Perfect Package podcast. From the perfect first date to the perfect Old West gang.
I knew it was coming. I was like, where's my Hateful Eight pick from him?
Damn right. Of course it's going to be in there.
Each episode, Chad and Dave get 5 picks to create the perfect package. Then, it's up to the listeners to decide who will win each episode of the Perfect Package podcast. So get ready to explore everything from road trips to bank heists.
All right, I felt like running
dark.
Yeah, because I thought this was a normal heist. We might be breaking into like a hospital to steal a heart right now.
The Perfect Package podcast is full of laughs, some healthy competition, and a side of interesting tidbits. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Chris.
And this is Brian.
And we are the hosts of Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast.
And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and other podcast apps for all your Ghost Rider needs.
Ride on.
Hi, I'm Howard Mackey, and this is Capes on the Couch.
All right, and we're back. So let's start with the in-universe treatment. And I'm sure your first question is going to be, does he have Eli, or is Eli not in control? That's typically how you start things.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to be your first question.
Yeah.
So
Yep. The main thing is Robbie is, quote unquote, a good kid. I understand that. He has had so many things thrown at him that I don't even know where to begin with this. I know you already mentioned that they're doing a current run of it. I want to read it for myself because, my first thought was, is there a way we do like an exorcism of this? I don't know. My leaning, honestly, would be more towards someone outside of it, similar to how I would deal with Out of Universe, where I need a professional that knows a bit about this, but is not directly linked. So in other words, I wouldn't ask any of the other Ghost Riders to get involved. I may get someone magically inclined. So Doctor Strange is the first person that comes to mind, just to investigate a little bit as to what's going on there. His head is a literal helmet. I don't know if that's meant as just the metaphor because that's how how this whole thing got rolling, or if it's actual protection, because there's not much else I'd be able to do. This guy could fry me in an instant. I almost feel like and I know I've mentioned this in other characters, where's a neutral ground? Where's somewhere I can be that's considered a safe zone from these types of hellish people? You know comics very well. I mean, I don't know if you have any locations that might work. Oh man.
Well, I know that in the Avengers, in the current challenge of the Ghost Riders arc, that Damon Hellstrom is brought in to address the demonic possession, and he ends up in hell, and he's dealing with Johnny Blaze, who's the ruler of hell. So I don't know that hell is necessarily a neutral ground, but I think it's certainly an area where maybe the influence of Eli could be negated or strengthened. I don't know.
That's the part that I'm really worried about. I just don't need Eli taking over. That's the main thing. I mean, this is truly like tread lightly kind of stuff. I would almost like to do similar to children. I mean, young children, you do play therapy where the whole point is the child is comfortable with what they're doing and you're learning from just observing and interacting in a very organic way. Now, obviously, at this point, he's an adult. I mean, teenager, yes, but an adult. So I'm not trying to deal with him in a childlike manner like that. But even though I'm not familiar or as familiar with the culture, I could learn. And I would almost like to say, hey, Robbie, can you do me a favor? Can you show me how do you put together a racer? How do you prepare for a race? How do you, you're so good. How do you make sure you win? And what what goes to that? If I know this is scary to say, like, is it possible for me to take a ride with you? Just to get the true organic nature of what it is that he experiences and how he experiences it, so that I could get that trust. And once that's established in universe, say like, all right, so now that I really understand this, how do I get it so that we do this in a way that's not going to result in a lot of hellfire, brimstone, and destruction because you're dealing with this other guy, and try and do it in a way that I'm not awakening Eli. I don't even know if that's the proper term. I apologize if I'm offending people with what I'm saying, but just really doing it that way, like just in the moment, like in these little, I like to call them teachable moments. Yeah, you're doing this, but what about the other person you're racing against? Do you know anything about them? Like, well, why would I care? Well, do they have a family? Why are they doing this? Is it really just a thrill for them? And how many people get hurt on this? Just introducing the idea. All right, you're good at one side, but is there a way that we can minimize the risk, still keep some of the reward? Because most of these things, it's high risk, high reward behavior. Being able to accept lower rewards with lower risk and figure out what your goals are. In other words, do you have to win $1 million so that you're set for life with your brother? Or do you need just enough to put food on the table and not have to worry about, all of hell being taken over because you're allowing this serial killer soul to control you? These are the balances that I would be looking at. And I'm just thinking in general, like, this could end up totally chaotic, but that's the best I got for in universe. I guess it would make a good reading.
All right. So how do you reconcile that then with out of universe, or what would your suggestion be? Because
I mean, you got a teenager that is forced to be an adult to his own family, his own sibling, and he's managing going to school, having a job, earning money, and he likes to drag race on the side. To be honest with you, that sounds pretty plausible. So
that part of it.
Yeah. Well, okay. What are you adding out of universe then that you would think would really throw a monkey wrench into it?
I'm talking about the voices. I'm talking about the influence of Eli.
I get
in his head.
Okay. If you're going that route, then that
schizophrenia.
Yeah. Okay. What you're describing, yeah, that sounds like a person with a psychotic illness. That's a different story. All right. Now that you've introduced that, thank you. I appreciate it. I have to think a bit more about it because, first of all, that's the perfect time. Well, probably poor choice of words. That is the most likely time that someone develops those types of symptoms. In addition to that, you have a person that clearly is functioning, but recognizes that something may be wrong, and this may be the first time that they're reaching out to you. So they may or may not be reaching out for the reason you think. In other words, if he's reaching out because he's saying, man, this is really stressful to me, I just want to make sure that I stay on my A game, that's a lot different than, wow, I'm having severe psychotic symptoms and I want to get that treated. Because many people may not even have that insight. So my job, first of all, is to establish what the baseline is. If this is a person that, believe it or not, has heard voices for a long period of time, they don't really impact their functioning, and the way Robbie is originally presented, he's functioning, then I can approach it with any typical outpatient assessment and offer my recommendations. And usually it doesn't require much more scrutiny than that. Of course, I think we discussed this with the Deadpool episode, but to get back to it, I have to be much more practical if the person has voices that are truly impactful, leading to distraction, disorganization, command hallucinations that are telling them to hurt themselves or hurt other people. And if we're talking about Robbie in terms of Eli, that could be a significant thing. The person may or may not actually have discomfort related to that. Most people, especially the way Robbie's portrayed, would probably feel pretty disturbed if they were having voices telling them to hurt other people or kill people. So from that standpoint, that's not really that hard to sell. The idea, though, is it a voice? Because if we're going to add the spiritual realm to it, in other words, it's hard to say, I'm going to ignore a demon, or I'm going to ignore God, or I'm going to ignore the devil, because those carry so much weight in our society at large, in our culture. In other words, let's say that we could verify 100% right now that the voice that you're hearing is actually either a famous person or a family member or God or whatever. And we could verify that. Would you ignore that voice? I don't think people would. And that's why we end up in these very tense situations, because now I have to find a way to point out that, oh, even if it's not that, is there a way we can incorporate it so that you don't have to deal with the stigma of what people are thinking around you? Because often that person has either been confronted by someone else about this, or they at some point had questions themselves, or are still questioning themselves. So I have to do all this exploration as much as possible while still getting to the bottom line in terms of treatment. And I'm not a pill pusher, but antipsychotics are pretty darn important in this case.
Oh, I think that would be almost an imperative.
Yeah.
I think in this situation, anytime you're dealing with this degree of psychotic illness, that you need some sort of medication to at least manage the person.
Yeah.
You're not trying to control them.
Right.
You're not trying to, cure them, quote unquote. Because and we don't ever really talk about that C word there, but you are trying to manage them as best you can.
Yeah.
And that carries with it its own set of difficulties.
Yep. And he is high risk because in terms of the factors that would make it more likely for him to decompensate, does he have a familial stressor? Yes, he does, with his brother. Does he have academic stressors? Yes, he does. Still going to school. Does he have occupational stressors? Yes, he does. What are his hobbies that could at least be a distraction? Racing cars at a high speed. Oh boy. So especially now that you've really presented it that way, this is pretty tense. And I have to make sure I maintain that he has been functioning, and I would like to think he continues to function. And if I can get him on the ground level to say, you know what? We just look for the tools in the toolbox. And these medications are one tool. You're a young kid. We make sure that we don't overdo it. In other words, the last thing I want is to put him in a situation where he has side effects such as what we call neuroleptic malignant syndrome, where your muscles get incredibly tensed up and you just feel absolutely terrible. And believe it or not, there's something called dystonia, where your muscles actually lock up, and they can be different muscle groups, including your eyeballs. And I've seen all of this. It's not pleasant. It's not fun to look at. All of these medications have risks. He's a young man. I'm not talking about sexual preference. I'm just talking about a person's own body image. Some of these produce weight gain. Some of these produce gynecomastia. In other words, for people that don't know what that means, man boobs. I got to make sure that I'm open and honest about it, and I figure out what it is that would help him. Oh, and I forgot about the idea some of them cause some level of sleepiness, so take them at night. Whatever it is, I have to make sure that I can have him comfortable enough that he's willing to start at a low dose and monitor it on a regular basis. I also want to make sure I have an integrated system. In other words, he's a great candidate for caseworkers, meaning someone, although he's doing it well on his own, especially with the idea of introducing medication, that he has support so that his brother's needs are met and he's able to focus on one thing at a time, be it just school or just work. I'm not trying to pass judgment. I know we are heavy on an education, and it is important. Education is very important. But trying to do all of it at once is going to, at some point, burn someone like him out. No pun intended. So from that standpoint, I think he's a great candidate for treatment. And if it's at the point at any time where he feels like the voices really are overwhelming, or he's able to relay to me that they are commanding him to do negative things and he feels out of control, then I do have to look at a more secure setting, a hospitalization. I don't think it would necessarily have to get to that point, but I always have to be aware of it. And at some point, I have to let him know that too. And that's never a fun thing to talk about. But every state, every location has its own means of how to go about that. We always try and do it from a voluntary standpoint, but in all honesty, we do have involuntary methods as well. Now, let me make this clear. We don't do this in an office setting. In other words, I do not say, by the way, you're coming with me, and I grab his arm or something and we, wrestle until I can get him into the hospital or something like that. It doesn't work that way. We just have the conversation. And then from there, if at any point it appears that things are not going well, then we end the session. I do whatever I think is clinically appropriate and necessary for the safety of himself and other people. And usually that involves phone calls rather than any direct, like I said, physical contact or anything of the sort. And in all honesty, the feedback that I've been given from patients after the fact, many of them say, I didn't realize it in the moment, but afterwards, I understand why the decision was made. So that's generally the feedback. I know there are some people that always hold a grudge or whatever, and I'm sorry about that. And I know nobody wants to go through things like this, but at the same time, it's the type of serious conversation that we have to have. And the way that I like to point it out, because this is not meant to be stigmatizing in any way. The way that I point it out, if someone were to have diabetes, they came to a doctor, went to the doctor's office, they take their blood sugar, they say your blood sugar is over 500. The person would usually respond like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that. What do we do? And the doctor may say, you know what? You need to get some fluids and you're going to need to get this under control and you got to go to the hospital. Most people would say, wow, that really puts a damper on my day. I really have other things I have to do, but I also understand because my health is important. Please do the same thing for your mental health as well. Because I know all the stereotypes. Oh, you're just making money off of doing this. Or, well, you just do it because you don't like me. Or, well, it's because you're not taking the time to listen. I hear all of it. And I am telling you, although I'm sure nobody's perfect and there are some people that can do better, we all are doing this because we care. So if it gets to that point, because I know we don't usually talk about it that much, I'm taking the opportunity and you open the opportunity to me. Just want to let people know, because at this point, I don't know if I've officially said this before, but yeah, I am actually a medical director for an inpatient hospital. So I do see it that way. And before that, I was working in an emergency room setting. So I've seen it that way. And before that, I had a private practice. So I've seen it on the outside too. I've seen it in all the different areas. And I'm telling you, to a person, the only reason we make these decisions is because we always think of safety first and what can we do to help. And that's it. So if you've had a negative experience, I hope that you never have it again. And if you've had a positive experience, please let people know, because the sooner we get rid of this stigma, the sooner people will get comfortable with the idea that their mental health comes first.
Very well stated. And see, to our listeners, Doc just gave a little mini CV there. He knows his stuff. He's not just, I didn't rope him in here just because he's my best friend. I roped him in here because he knows what he is talking about. Way more than anyone else I've met that talks about anything else.
Okay, that's a little much.
Doc knows his stuff. All right, so let's take all of that and see what happens when we get Robbie Reyes on Dr. Issues' couch. And we'll see if he's alone.
No. Hello, Robbie. I'm Dr. Issues.
Hey, Doc.
Are we really doing this?
How can I help you today?
How weird you want to get?
Based on my practice, I've seen many unusual things. I've heard a lot of stories, and this is completely confidential, so please don't be afraid to share things with me. I promise not to judge.
Oh, are you serious with this, Joker?
Have you ever had patients who hear voices?
That's more common than you'd think. Are there multiple voices?
No, just one.
I'm the only one you need, boy.
I see.
Thing is, the voice is my satanic serial killer uncle, who's also responsible for giving me my abilities.
I prefer demonically inclined. And you're damn right I'm responsible, you ungrateful little bastard.
That's a lot to unpack.
I know. I've tried to get rid of him, but so far no dice.
And you can't get rid of me. We're literal soulmates.
Well, what does he say to you?
Go on. Tell him how much I tell you to kill. The lust for vengeance. The evil you must purge.
Is he talking to you right now?
No. Yeah. Well, he's tough.
Does he ever tell you to hurt yourself or others?
What happens if I tell you something like that?
Oh, nice one, Mr. Smooth. Now you've raised his suspicion. You don't need this fool. He doesn't understand.
Robbie, I've been doing this for a while, and I just want people to be safe, including you.
I don't need to be locked away like...
Like what? Like a killer? Like a psychopath? I saved you.
Robbie, this is serious. You stopped midway. What's he saying?
Don't tell him. He'll think you're a joke. Or go ahead. Tell him how much I want to wring his neck. That's even better.
It's not pleasant, I'll put it that way.
Have you ever been on medication for this?
Yes, please, give me drugs. See how that works out for you. You think I'm hard to handle now? Get me cranked up.
No drugs. Not exactly the kind of thing you can get a prescription to fix.
Well, how about something alternative? I do have other colleagues that are doctors, even if they're not practicing medicine.
Oh, you mean like Dr. Strange?
Absolutely.
I thought about him, but this seemed a little outside his comfort zone. I wanted an expert more on the hellish side of things. That's why I went to Damien.
You can bring all the demons you want, boy. You're not getting rid of me.
Well, then my options are limited. I mean, I tend to start with the basics, like, antipsychotics, and figure out the best place for treatment. In your case, in a short-term setting...
He wants to lock us up, strap you down to a bed and pump you so full of drugs you can't think straight. And he thinks it'll work.
Are you talking a hospital?
Well, we can discuss it in more detail if you want. I mean, let me get a better baseline. Are you able to resist what this person is saying?
No.
It depends.
On?
How angry I am. The madder I get, the harder it is to control him.
And I just love it when you get pissed off. So come on, you bitch. Get mad. He wants to lock us up. Don't let him.
Look, the reason I say short term is because the stereotype of, locking you away forever or whatever it's totally false, okay? My goal is for you to go through a treatment like that and move on with your life so you don't have to go back again.
I see.
Bullshit. He's lying to you, trying to get you to trust him so he can chain you up, chain us up.
Is there something that would make you more comfortable with the situation?
My biggest concern is my little brother, Gabe. He needs me to take care of him, and if I'm gone for too long, it's not good for him.
Oh, no worry about that. I'll be happy to take care of Gabe for you.
That's a legitimate concern. Okay, we certainly could develop a plan so that his needs are met, and so are yours. Okay, I just need some time.
Sorry, Doc. Time's a luxury I don't have.
Yeah, you need to be there for your special widow brother.
You shut up.
I'm sorry?
Not you, him.
That's right. Tell the doctor what's going on in that head of yours. Tell him how I'm going to leave you and take Wheels for a ride. I'm already used to being in a car. A wheelchair will be a nice change of pace.
You leave Gabe alone.
I want to help Gabe and you. And right now, I think we need to end this session here. It's clear that you're under a lot of stress and you need more help than both of us realized at the start.
Oh, it's too late now. Come on, Robbie. You always said you wanted me gone. That's why you're here, isn't it? I'll gladly leave you alone. Gabe can be my new best friend.
No, don't you dare touch him.
What are you going to do about it, boy? You can't stop me.
Just try me, asshole.
Okay, I'm going to go.
You're not going anywhere. Hiya, Doc.
I take it you're not Robbie.
Oh, you're a smart one. Really earned those fancy degrees.
Listen, my soul is clean. I don't think you'd get much out of me by...
Oh, I'm not one of those guys. They go after people like me. People who just enjoy hurting people. And this is gonna be fun.
Oh, no.
No, I won't let you hurt him. Stand down, you little shit. You can't control me now. Think again, jackass.
What the f***? Who's in control now?
It's me, Doc.
Who is me?
Robbie.
Okay, so how long will this last?
I don't know. Normally he's not satisfied until someone dies, so I know he'll be back. This is probably temporary, but I'm going to take this opportunity to get out of here before he comes back and hurts you or anyone else.
Yes, please. I'd be happy to help you once you have this situation under control.
I understand. Thanks, Doc. I'll be back. I promise.
Some people have panic buttons. I have the Avengers on speed dial. Jarvis? It's Doc. Got a minute?
Well, you survived. Wasn't really sure if that was going to happen.
Well, I'm just grateful that I had my office set up so that we both had access to the door. By the way, that really is truly how an office is supposed to be set up. So if a person wants to leave, they can leave. Doesn't matter if it's me, doesn't matter if it's them. De-escalate the situation, call the people that need to be called.
Good to know. And if and when I eventually ever make it into a therapist's office, which will probably at this point happen sometime in January, I'll be sure to keep that in mind.
Yep. And also never put yourself in a situation where you didn't do your triage properly and not know that that was part of the issue so that you put yourself in harm's way. That was pretty bad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. That was rough.
Uh-huh.
So that's going to wrap it up for not only this episode, but our season. So season 3 is done. 66 episodes down. We are doing really, really well. And frankly, I am continually surprised and impressed at how much the show has grown. Certainly 2019, I think, was a really banner year for the show. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of our fans, all of our patrons, all of our supporters, everybody who's tweeted at us, who's, retweeted us, who's emailed us, who's, especially our patrons, our patrons in particular. I want to thank all of them. You are all individually and collectively responsible for helping us keeping the show going. Everybody who all the creators that we spoke to at New York Comic Con, all the creators that we spoke to over the phone this year and over Skype, and the creators to come, and our fellow podcast friends and the mental health Avengers that we have spoken to our collective families that have allowed us to take this time out to do this and to give us the freedom and the time and the ability to make these connections and talk to listeners like you about these issues, and to you, the listeners, for giving us an hour each week to invade your car or your headphones or your computer, however it is that you choose to listen to us, that you have selected us among your podcast subscriptions. I know your time is valuable, and the fact that you spend it with us is something that Doc and I do not take for granted at all. And we are very cognizant of, and we are incredibly appreciative of. And the fact that so many more of you did it this year than in 2018. And I'm sure that number will continue to grow in 2020. Doc, anything you want to say, year-end wrap-up, so to speak?
I think you summarized very well. The only other thing that I would add is, and this is not intentional, every season that we've had, I've had some sort of change in my career. Some that are different and some that are huge increases in responsibility. And sometimes I get a little imposter syndrome. But the fact that even if I didn't have this as a job, even if I didn't have psychiatry or MD behind my name or anything like that, the fact that people are willing to listen to us and the things that we have to say and hopefully get some benefit and some entertainment, I am truly humbled. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You are really the inspiration as to why I do what I do on a daily basis. And I can't complain right now because I've had patients thank me. I know that my family has fully supported me. And for anyone that wonders if mental illness is something that is ever going to get better, I'd like to think that we show part of the way. There's no such thing as like the true path. Everybody has their own path in life, but I know that in my heart of hearts that we've at least touched one person. And if that's all we ever touch, that's fine with me. I hope it becomes thousands. I hope it becomes millions. But even just one is enough for me for the rest of my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but that's truly the way I feel.
No, I second that emotion as well. Thank you, Smokey Robinson. But in all seriousness, I do second that. We are not doing this for the money. We're certainly not doing this for the fame. We are doing this because it's the right thing to do, and it's helping. And it helps someone, then it's all worth it. And so we're going to take a couple of weeks. We're going to come back in January. We've got some fun stuff on tap for season 4, some new episode formats, some things to play with. We thank you, those of you a couple of months ago that filled out our listener survey. So we took a lot of that feedback and we're going to be applying that to some of our season 4 episodes. We're going to continue with the creator interviews. For those of you who enjoyed the mental health adventures, that's going to be coming up very, very soon. We're looking to get that in January. And so I think that's about it. So as always, we'll continue to stay active on social media. We may not necessarily be super, super active between Christmas and New Year's, but we will be active on social media. So you can find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Capes on the Couch. If you have any questions, comments, good, bad, indifferent, email us, capesonthecouch@gmail.com, or join our Facebook group. We've got the Discord server. We've got a Patreon. We've got a TeePublic. Those are the various ways in which you can contact us and let us know how you feel about the show and how much you appreciate what it is that we do. Or if you don't appreciate what we do, you can let us know that too. We take the good and the bad. So I think that's just about going to wrap it up. So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Diwali, Ramadan, Joyous Festivus. For you non-believers, hope the lines at the movies aren't too long. You can go see Star Wars or
not. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more. Don't go see Cats.
What do you got against cats? You own cats. What's wrong with
I married a cat.
Yeah, what's wrong with cats?
The movie? Really? You want to get into this now at the very end of the show?
What, you really don't think that CGI humanoid cats was the way to go?
If you want to drop a couple tabs before you go see it.
Oh, boy.
But in any case, go enjoy your holidays, folks. Thank you. We love you. We appreciate every single one of you. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. We will see you next year.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.